The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's disappointing we don't have another Labor Speaker on this motion. However, we will push on. Speaker, this motion and with the contributions by the Labor members during this debate show us the fundamental flaw in the Labor strategy, their policy and their ideology. The one thing that they seem to not understand, Deputy Speaker, is that the size of the economy, the size of the economic pie that we have in this nation is not fixed. It can rise and it can shrink, it can grow, Deputy Speaker, depending on the policies that the government of the day has. And Deputy Speaker, where we have policies that encourage and provide incentives for firms to go out there and to invest their capital and to take risks and experiment with new ideas, with new products, with new methods of production and distribution. Some of those ideas work. And when we do, they are grabbed and they are expanded, and that is what grows the economy. Now, if, Deputy Speaker, it wasn't like that, it would be very easy and the economy was a fixed size. You could just cut it up, redistribute it into equal pieces and have their so-called fair go for everyone. But that's not how an economy works. The very minute that you go in and you start redistributing the pie, at the very minute you do that, you actually destroy the incentives that created the wealth and created the size of that pie in the first place. This is why we see Labor governments having all these grand ideas and these grandiose spending promises. But when they come to deliver them, Deputy Speaker, the only way they can do so is to borrow more money and to put this nation further in debt. Now, a great example, Deputy Speaker, is the anti-coal rhetoric that we hear around the place. It seems to be some coincidence that those that run around and make the loudest noise saying, I want more spending for schools, and I want more spending for hospitals, and I want more spending for aged care centres, they are the very same people that go around demonising coal. And yet, Deputy Speaker, fine, close our coal mines down. But this year, Deputy Speaker, they will generate thermal coal, $22.5 billion worth of exports. And metallurgical coal, which often gets forgotten about, another $35 billion worth of exports. So just the royalties alone flowing in to the state government coffers are $6 billion. That's enough to employ something like 80,000 nurses. So if you want to go around and run an anti-coal rhetoric and say we want to close all these mines down, what you are doing, you are saying we're going to pull $6 billion out of the state royalties, and that gives them $6 billion less to pay for schools and to pay for hospitals. And Deputy Speaker, we see the same with the company tax cuts. We've had to argue and fight and get Labor fighting and screaming to get them to agree to reduce the corporate rate of tax, Deputy Speaker. And we've only been able to do it for companies with a turnover up to $50 million. We should have been, Deputy Speaker, it should have been unambiguously to do it for all companies. They talk about what Paul Keating did. They were the reforms of the Heek, Hawke and Keating governments. They reduced company tax for everyone because they knew that was important to make our nation internationally competitive, to attract capital and to grow the economy. And when you look at the evidence, when we reduced company tax, whether it was Paul Keating or whether it was Peter Costello, every single government in this nation that has reduced the rate of company tax hasn't ended up with less taxation revenue. They grew the economy, and at the end of the day, the governments had more taxation revenue. So even though it seems counterintuitive, with the lower rate of corporate tax, the government gets more gross tax revenue, which gives us more money to pay for all those things that we so desperately need of, Deputy Speaker. And we've heard Labor Speaker today talking about Labor's policy on negative gearing, Deputy Speaker, a dangerous policy that will drive house prices down and will drive rents up. It's been tried before, it's failed before, it will fail again, and I call on Labor members to get rid of that policy.
For his contribution.